come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. You got a belly up to the bar? We have, in fact, kept your seat, and it is great, great, great to see you back. Even you, yes, you, and you, over there. Don't think I don't see you over there. And when I got here to the studio, Captain Obvious was still sitting in the chair, and all around his chair were just bags and bags and bags of littered Doritos. What's that all about? Anyway, Tashay is going to be your bartender tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right. The reason I say that is because you are listening to the SHR Media, to the SHR Media Network on the website, shrmedia.com. If you want to watch live, where you can see the Ridley Scott Memorial lava lamp, because who knows what kind of grotesqueries come out of that during the show. Oh, look, it's starting to do the very same thing right now. You can go to the SHR Media Facebook page, quick like a bunny, and it's live. It's rocking and rolling there right now, right here. You know what? We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free. But the drinks are not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle because of water purposes. This is, after all, California. And I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. California is currently undergoing a drought, and to waste water is almost like Monty Python's song, "Every Sperm is Sacred." Okay? I think you got that. We're going to have Dan Butcher on tonight. He of the High Plains Media fame. Now, Shaheed Sean likes to call Dan Butcher the second best guy in today's media. I don't know why Sean refuses to kick him up to the first best guy in media, but for whatever reason, he refuses to kick Dan Butcher up to the first best guy in media. There are so many things to talk about. It's gotten to the point now where I have, and this is, you guys have all heard this before. I quantify my shows, or I gauge my shows in terms of how many tabs there are up for my show. So I've got 33 tabs up. Anything beyond like 30 tabs, and this poor bastard over here, my Sony Vaio, starts to kind of choke a little bit, and it doesn't really like that. And what I've been noticing, which is kind of odd, when I try to play Fox News audio cuts, for example, and I've got one coming up. This bad boy over here is kind of getting a little funky on me. No, I don't mean the smell, and it's still working rapidly because I replaced its hard drive with a solid state unit, and that made it much more zippy. But I'm going to, let's put it this way, I'm going to play a Fox cut. Actually, it could be any cut, but for whatever reason, Fox cuts seem to be more susceptible to this weird kind of thing. And then from there, we're going to go into an article that I have until Dan calls in. He's going to call in about 10 minutes or so. And then I've got an article that I'd like to go over with you guys by Kurt Schlichter, one of my favorite columnists. He's over at townhall.com. And this article is entitled, So, you want to be a conservative writer, do you? But first,
It's time for happy stories and good times.
And is it ever? Here's a headline. Trump budget aims to end automatic pay hikes for federal workers and make firings easier. Now, let me ask all of you folks, especially those of you in the private sector, whether you're retired, whether you're working, let me just throw this out. Did you guys get automatic pay hikes? There's a reason for them. I can understand that. But I bet that especially if you're in the private sector, you didn't get such a thing. Okay. Fox, are you going to work with me here? See, here's what I'm talking about. Let's see. Let's try this.
We took care of the military like it's never been taken care of before. In
Thank
fact,
you.
General Mattis called me. He goes, wow, I can't believe I got everything we wanted. I said, that's right, but we want no excuses. We want you to buy twice, okay? Twice what you thought for half the price. So maybe we're going to get involved a little bit in the buying. We want to get twice as many planes for half the price. And believe me, we can do a lot because the procurement process is very outdated, to put it nicely. But we're going to have something very special. But
Okay, enough of that. Donald Trump was talking about the budget, and that's a separate story. That's a massive separate story. Let me just cut off Sean there. He was going to say something. But the happiness is this aspect of the budget. President Trump put underperforming federal workers on notice Monday, including in his $4 trillion budget plan, a major overhaul for how hiring and firing is done in the D.C. bureaucracy. Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. Finally, HMOG. Following on Trump's campaign promise to drain the swamp, the plan calls for several big changes. This includes ending automatic pay hikes that kick in irrespective of performance, changing retirement benefits and making it easier to fire bad employees and reward good ones. If you remember, that was begun already at the VA, and boy, was that way overdue. Because our veterans deserve better treatment than what the VA customarily used to provide. And, of course, there are still problems with the VA. The workforce and the workplace have evolved in recent decades, but the government personnel system remains a relic of an earlier era. Federal workers themselves overwhelmingly agree in surveys that the existing system fails to reward the best performers or appropriately deal with the worst performers. A White House budget fact sheet reads, describing the plan as bringing the government in line with private sector practices. Finally. And to that I say that is definitely a good story. That is a happy story. And we got about 5 more minutes left, I believe, roughly, before Dan gets on. Where's my manners? Where's my manners? Welcome to Traveling Cynic, the cynic who travels. Thank you for being in chat tonight. Mike, thank you for being in chat tonight. Simone, thank you for being in chat. Mary Brockman, thank you for being in chat. And one viewer whom we shall not unmask because unlike the federal government, we don't do that. So, Kurt Schlichter writes, you want to be a conservative writer? After 3 years of writing at the Andrew Breitbart era Breitbart, then over 5 more at Town Hall, plus some books and freelancing from the 1980s to the 2000s, aspiring writers will ask me what they need to do to be a conservative writer, and I get sad. I get sad because I know the answer is the one answer they don't really want to hear. You have to write. And as my friend Michael Walsh says, it's behind in seat, except that he doesn't say behind. Get it? Get the writing part down first. Then you add the conservative component to what it is you already do in terms of hard work. No, it's not hard work like doing construction or carrying a rifle and rucksack are, but if it was easy, everyone would do it. And only a few people are so inclined to take on the challenge. Most people have more sense. If you want to get published as a conservative writer, here's the good news. There's always a market for good conservative writing. Content truly is king. And if your stuff is good, and sometimes if it's mediocre, someone somewhere will publish it. The bad news is that the going rate for new writers is nothing. And everyone is always willing to pay the going rate. Thank you. Nicely done. So you want to get published in a place where your work will get seen, and you want to get a check out of it. As a kid, I wanted a pony. Actually, as a kid, I wanted an M16A1, which never showed up under the tree, but that's not the point. The point is sometimes you're not going to get what you want right away. I did get that M16A1, though. I just had to carry it around in a desert, but it is possible to get published and get paid. You just don't get it by wanting. You need to produce productive conservative outlets. You need to produce content that conservative outlets will want enough to pay you for. So let's start with some basics. Obviously, you know your outlet, and you got to start somewhere. You need to make sure your brand of conservatism matches the site you're considering. If your Twitter bio, advanced tip, use social media to publicize your work, reads Trump MAGA train, then perhaps the Weekly Standard is not your venue. But you might consider climbing aboard that sinking cruise ship if you are that kind of conservative who feels Jeff Flake and Ben Sass need to tone down their inflammatory right and wrong rhetoric in favor of a more bipartisan, conciliatory tone. Once you identify an outlet you want to write for, get its writers' guidelines and do exactly what they say. You don't get to break the rules. If it says pieces must be 500 to 700 words, that's what your audition piece, because you are auditioning, needs to be. On the technical side, proofread it carefully, then get a pal to proofread it too. Email it to the person the guidelines tell you to send it to with a short cover letter explaining why you are qualified to write it. Be confident, but don't be arrogant, and be professional. A solid writer provides good work consistently by deadline in near final form. Yes, they will copy edit, but ideally they will find few typos. Oh, and don't be a pain. A lot of writers are, and they tend to not last long. Now, mechanics aside, do you have something to say? Have something to say. Often, I'll get asked by a new conservative writer to look at a piece, and I ask what it's about, and the writer will reply, well, it's about how liberals suck. Yeah, I like the premise, sure, but that's not an article or a column. That's a book or a series of books, and Coulter has made a career on that general topic. And it's a well I draw from on a regular basis, but it's not an article or a column. Now, narrow your focus. Tie the concept to an event happening right now. Be topical and save your evergreen think pieces for when you have a following that will indulge more leisurely take. Be fresh, even on a subject that everybody is writing about. Take Hillary Clinton, who I often refer to as Felonia Milhouse von Pantsuit. Advanced tip: catchphrases can help set you apart from the pack. You might almost think that there is nothing left to be written about that dizzy diva and her epic flame-out, but she's always coming up with some embarrassing new scheme to steal back a sliver of the limelight she so desperately needs. Find one little aspect of her horribleness, like her toleration for abusers on her staff, even as she poses as the champion of women, or how Democrats are terrified she might try to make it a failure trifecta by running in 2020 and zero in. Be clear, be focused, be different from all those writers who submit a wet noodle when the editors are looking for a cold steel scalpel. Every line in a column should hit. The reader either nods at an insight or laughs at every single line. Every single line. Chisel. Then polish your sentences until they gleam. There's no room for flab in a column. You are a conservative. Think of sentences that do nothing for the article. As dreamers living here on welfare, deport them. Be merciless. You may love that line you crafted about Donald Trump and Stephen Miller being two of the four horsemen of the liberal apocalypse, but if you delete it, no one's going to miss it. Here are some tips. Do not try to sound smart. You will sound dumb. Focus on writing clearly. Obey the rule of threes. When listing things, list 3. 2 is too short. 4 gets clunky. For example, even in her forced retirement, Hillary maintains her unique ability to be simultaneously vacuous, condescending, and smarmy. Actually, I kind of like that. Vacuous, condescending, and smarmy. Specific over general. Vivid over bland. Always use a specific image where you can, including by using proper nouns. Write vivid phrases that pop on the page, not ones that convey the idea blandly. Avoid Hillary walks around the woods, drunk and depressed. Instead, Her Majesty staggers between Chappaqua oaks, sobbing and clutching a half-empty screw-top bottle of Chuck Shaw Chardonnay. Okay, all right, you got me, Kurt. I'm laughing. But then that's my style. Yours won't be quite the same. So what? Keep at it. Develop your own style so that people who read your piece will know it's yours without ever checking the byline. That is absolutely correct. And Kurt Schlichter happened to nail it. There's a final paragraph to go. But I have to say, and I'll ask you, if you're familiar with writing, if you're familiar with Kurt Schlichter, all I have to do, basically, is look at the first paragraph of a Kurt Schlichter article, and I know that it's him. And here's the last paragraph of the article, So You Want to Be a Conservative Writer, by Dan Schlichter. Or, excuse me, Dan Schlichter! By Kurt Schlichter. Okay, I'll kill myself. And most importantly, write. Write. That may not be the answer you wanted to hear, but it's the answer every aspiring conservative writer needs to hear. Well, I happened to hear something in the background, and it sounded like the tone that Skype makes when you customarily call in. So if there's a Skype note, then my guess would be that His Majesty, Sir Dan of Butcher, is here. He of High Plains Media, and so I must, at the earliest convenience, say something similar to, welcome to the show, Dan Butcher.
Hey, BZ, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I am doing wonderful. It's been, let's see, I didn't talk to you last week, but I did talk to you the Thursday before that.
Right.
And so, how have you been doing, sir, since then?
Well, much better than I deserve, of course.
That's true for
busy,
me.
Busy, man. Busy. We are kicking off primary election season here in the state of Texas, as well as other parts of the country are as well. But so we are busy on top of all the normal everyday news coverage. We're getting into election season, which adds even more to our plate.
Oh, yeah.
And more stories to cover. Not near enough reporters to cover everything, but hey, we're getting it done.
That's a good point, and I hadn't considered that, but this year, I don't know, I'd guess starting really seriously, or maybe things have already started really, really early. I don't really have my finger on that pulse kind of thing for that, but we're going to get really heavy into politics when the midterms come up in, let's see, the midterms are September, November?
Yeah, we're looking at, right now we are using the state of Texas as an example. Right now are our primary elections. So here's what's happening in the state of Texas. We will have our primary elections, and actually early voting starts Monday, February the 20th.
What?
Then we will have our primary election. The primary elections will be on Monday, March the 6th. Tuesday, March the 6th. And then after that, after we have all the primary elections, then we start gearing up for all the conventions. We will have local precinct conventions. Then we'll have the county conventions, and then of course that will lead up to the GOP Texas State Convention, which takes place every couple of years, which will be in July, I believe. Excuse me, Mrs. Butcher just corrected me. It'll be in June. And so that'll be in, you want to talk about what's going to be an interesting situation. The state GOP convention here in Texas will be held in San Antonio, Texas. So kind of a liberal stronghold here in the state of Texas. So that should be very interesting.
Okay, so it's going to be another political year, and we should expect no less. Now, how many representatives are there in Texas?
Oh, man, geez. We have 31 state senators and then 157 right at 157 representatives in the state legislature. So 31 state senators, 157 state representatives, such like that. Our state legislature, of course, is very unique. We have a part-time legislature that only meets every 2 years. Of course,
you
we
lucky
meet
bastards.
every 2 They meet every 2 years. We have a state law which states we have to have a balanced budget. And let me clarify. When I say they meet every 2 years, they meet 5 months out of the year every 2 years during the spring into the basically starting in January, heading into May. And if they don't have everything worked out, we might have one special session, maybe two. But our state legislature never meets. Normally doesn't meet past May the 1st.
Okay, so there was a method to my madness, and a reason that I was asking that. I think that I'm pretty sure that we're going to keep the Senate, and I'm fairly sure at this point, although things can change, that the GOP is going to keep the House. And the reason I was asking that is because are there any races that look as though they're endangered, to your knowledge, in Texas?
No. Our governorship's pretty solid. As far as the big senatorial race, of course, that involves Ted Cruz. He's being challenged by Beto O'Rourke, who is actually a United States representative that represents the El Paso area here in Texas. He's stepping up to the plate. There's actually in the Democratic primary, there's actually several that are vying to go up against Ted Cruz, but it looks like O'Rourke's going to be the one that comes out ahead of there. But when it's all said and done, it looks like Ted Cruz is going to be pretty safe. Now here's what's interesting as far as the state of Texas, and you've also seen this across the United States. Here in the state of Texas, we've had 5, 6, or 7 of our representatives that are not running for re-election, and that includes Republicans and Democrats. Now the Democrats are kind of eyeing a couple of seats that they hope to turn, but nothing really significant that's going to drastically change the makeup from the state of Texas as far as the congressional congregation, U.S. senators and U.S. representatives. We were looking at possibly having a challenge to our election maps and our election districts, which if we'd had to redraw the election maps a bit, that might have swayed things a little bit more for the Democrats, but of course, the courts have struck that down and said the maps are valid. Everything's good to go. So right now, no major drastic changes as far as the number of Democrats versus Republicans. Now, where we're going to see the drastic change here in the state of Texas is who the Republicans are that are going to be going to Congress, that are going to be representing us on the state level. So that we've got a lot of very interesting races that are taking place here in the primaries, Republicans versus Republicans, that are far more interesting than entertaining than what they're going to face in the general election in November.
California, as opposed to Texas is a little complicated for me. I'm not used to complications like this or like that. California is very simple. Democrats.
Yes.
That's all you get. You're going to get Democrats. And here's the wacky thing about it. I read an article last week about how the left needs to move further left. Well, the state of Fornicality is going to be the petri dish in which that will be tested. Jerry Brown is on his way out. Jerry sometimes can't add 2 and 2 on a particularly bad day. There's a whole story about that. You guys are lucky sons of bitches by having your governor, but our governor is going to exit stage left. Now, when he does, our lovely little lieutenant governor, Newsom, is probably going to run. And if you think that California was left under Jerry Brown, oh, you ain't seen nothing under the leftism that Ransom is going to bring to the table It will be all-out warfare. As far as the Republicans are concerned, in our legislature, they're done. They're toast. They can't put two votes together.
Well, BZ, let me make you jealous for a minute. Let me tell you the exact makeup. I want to tell you the exact makeup of our state legislature here. In our between the House and the Senate, we have 181 voting members. We have 31 state senators, 150 state representatives. The current makeup in our state Senate is 20 Republicans, 11 Democrats. The current makeup in the Texas House is, are you ready for this?
Okay.
95 Republicans to 55 Democrats. We have a good shot. The makeup in the Senate's going to remain pretty much the same. In the Texas House, the way some of the polls are showing, some of the races are going, it's looking like we may have, we could possibly pick up a few seats and maybe have a somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe a 10, the Republicans putting them up into the 105 margin, which putting the Democrats back down to around 45 when we had the supermajority a few years ago. So the Republicans here in the state of Texas are looking at possibly another supermajority in the state legislature. So we're kind of the exact opposite of what you have in California.
You are the anti-California. You are the 180 California. Now, if I get this done, I'm still a little bit of a ways away about writing sort of the post of posts, and I hope to have it done for Thursday's show, because if I have it done, it's so lengthy that to just go over it and all the issues that I cite in it may take the entire show. But like I say, California is in fact the ugly, nasty petri dish in which Sacramento, as I customarily am wont to say, when I point, and you're watching on Facebook Live, the Bill Mill is directly 2 miles away in the direction that I'm pointing, west. That is the locus of evil on this entire United States of America. It's right there. I can smell the sulfur every time I get close to it. So California, you want to know what's going on in California? I'm going to tell you Thursday. But you already know the thing about California. In the chat, it's interesting because Traveling Cynic said that's because the Republicans have in fact all moved to Arizona and Texas. And we got about 1.5 minutes to go. So the final question for you before we go to the break, Dan, are you guys just happening to notice that you are, in fact, experiencing an influx of people from California?
Let me tell you what we are getting. A lot people have said, and we've heard a lot of arguments that, we heard this in 2016, that, the Democrats thought that they were going to have a wave, thought that they were going to have a dramatic change in the makeup of voters here in the state of Texas. Right. There was a misconception that there were a lot of liberals moving to Texas from other parts of the country, whether it be California, New York, whatever. It's conservatives that are moving away from too much government control, overtaxation, people with common sense that are moving to Texas. And so what you have seen is a stabilization of the makeup here in the state of Texas as far as the Republicans. They also miscalculated the number of Hispanic voters that would go Democrat versus Republican. We've actually seen an increase of Hispanic voters here in the state of Texas.
And
when we come back from the break,
that's
BZ,
an issue.
I've got to.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
I've got to. Yeah, here in the state of, when we come back from the break, I got another thing I'm going to throw at you, and I'm going to watch the screen for your blood to boil when I tell you this.
Okay, folks, we got to take a break. Now, Dan is going to ask me a question when we come back for the break, and then I'm going to ask Dan another set of questions. One of the things is I'm going to ask him, hey, what up with the media and the sister of Kim Jong-un? What up with that? And the second thing I'm going to ask is, hey, wasn't that a great, great portrait done of the Obamas? Hang on, folks. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Weaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it again. Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll. Like, what are you talking about? Just the last question that you cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, about 2 miles from the belly of the beast, the actual Capitol building. Sacratomato, Fornicalia, yes we are. We can feel that sucking action as it tries to suck all the cash out of all of our pockets all the time. And, of course, that terrible sulfur smell that try as they can, try as they may, they just can't get rid of it, and they don't know why. We're talking to Dan Butcher, he of High Plains Media fame, And Dan, welcome. And I think you said you had a question for me, sir.
I was going to throw this at you to kind of sum up our comparison of state legislatures between Texas and California.
Okay.
Do you know what your lawmakers make on average in the state of California?
I'd guess between $175,000 and $200,000.
The average salary, when it's averaged out, is $104,118, and that's in addition to the per diem costs to cover lodging, meals, incidentals, political bribes, what have you, right? Okay. So now, in your legislatures, of course, are full time. This is what they do for a living, year round, 24/7. Here in the state of Texas, now here you go. Now, our state legislators are paid, just to round everything up, they are paid $600 a month or $7,200 per year, plus a per diem of $190 every day the legislature's in session. Basically what it comes to is for their complete 2-year term in office to a grand total of $41,000.
Thank you, Dan. I haven't laughed like that in a while.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
That's absolutely fundamentally glorious. I'm going to have to put that in my little tickler file. Holy crap. Well, then, on the other hand, that really is more like a citizens' Congress, a citizens' legislature, where that's not your primary job, where in order to survive, you have to actually have a job and make a paycheck and have some other kind of support other than just the government, unlike all the parasitical units that are in California. Now, I had a couple of other questions, and I know that you wanted to talk about this. So the first one, I'll go to this because I sense you have even more to say perhaps about the second question. But the first question is, hey, didn't you think those newly revealed portraits of the Obamas, those were wonderful, professional, really excellent? I mean, the quality of work in those portraits was beyond stellar.
Well, number one, this is what you get. And I loved all the if you have not gone onto Twitter and Facebook and seen all the memes that have been created because of this, it is absolutely hysterical. Now, let's talk about what happens when you hire artists that actually have no talent but are activists. This is what happens. Of course, it looks like Cheech and Chong painted Barack Obama's portrait. And then, of course, let's talk about Michelle Obama's portrait. Looks nothing like her. What it actually looks like is a slimmer version of Oprah Winfrey is what that portrait looks like. And absolutely, it's just. But if you go look, I've got one that I shared on my personal Facebook page where somebody had put Bob Ross, painting the portrait of Obama, and of course the ones with Obama sitting on the toilet, disappearing, different things. They're absolutely priceless. And here's what's funny, folks. It's not only the conservatives that are the Republicans that are having fun with this. The Democrats are having fun with this. And how ludicrous and how outrageous these things are. And when you and I'm gonna throw this out there, how classless they are compared to if you put the portrait of Obama sitting in that chair. By the way, what's up with his left hand in that portrait? That's a whole nother subject to talk about. But if you compare him to the other presidential portraits, even the notorious one of Bill Clinton that's hanging in the Smithsonian, with the one with the shadow of a certain intern in the painting. But even comparing them to that, they just seem to have no class, nothing to represent the office or show respect to the office of the president. That's kind of the impression I'm getting. And it's not only me, and it's not only Republicans, it's not only conservatives, libertarians. It is the Democrats and liberals that are noticing it as well. They're just in disbelief.
I said last night I was talking on Ken McClinton's show, the Exceptional Conservative show, and I said if I'd gotten my neighborhood 5-year-old, we could have acquired a similar portrait. And I said, moreover, more specifically, what it looked like is they acquired someone's. What had happened actually is this. This is factually correct. An orange orangutan in honor of Donald John Trump was removed from the Somalia Zoo and was given a canvas, and they decided that they were going to have the orangutan, orange in color, decide that he was going to do these two portraits, and what you see as a result is what this orangutan decided that he was going to do. And by the way, they saved a lot of money because that orangutan was a lot cheaper than any other artist.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Now, here is the thing. Let's talk about the cost of these paintings. Now, while we're talking about things, each one of these portraits are somewhere in the neighborhood. I think the combined cost of them together was $500,000. Think about that.
Worth every penny.
This is taxpayer money, ladies and gentlemen, that were used for these. So $500,000 for these portraits. For quite frankly, the one of Michelle Obama looks nothing like her. And then let's think about it. I got to tell you, this is the first impression that I got when I saw the one of Barack Obama was, you know what, if you were to take the famous picture of a young Barack Obama wearing the hat, right as he's right out of high school, going to college, smoking a joint, if you were to superimpose that head onto that portrait, it would be perfect. I think it'd be fitting, for it. But $500,000 for this, it's very bad art in my opinion.
You're being really kind. You're being very, very kind. Here's an aspect, however, that a lot of people don't know. And I won't give that artist's name because, as far as I'm concerned, they deserve no credit. The artist, and I use that word very, very loosely, the artist who did Obama's portrait also specializes, I should care to point out, in portraits of black women holding up the severed heads of white women.
Yes.
Now, if you think that I'm making this shite up, I would suggest that anyone and everyone who's saying, oh, BZ, what a load of crap, you know that's not true. You're just being a racist by throwing it out there. Oh, really? Go to your favorite search engine and ask for the parameters of that and click on the image section. And you're going to see some images produced by that artist. So that's what I call now the BZ reversal axiom comes into play here. What if the official artist of the Donald John Trump portrait, when that arrives, let's say that artist is a white man whose specialty is painting portraits of beheaded white women or black women, better yet, of black women. Now, how do you think that would go over in the American media maggots, the Democrats, leftists, not just in the United States, oh no, but the world over? And not one media item, not one media regime has said anything about this with regard to the artist of Barack Obama. Gee, I can't imagine why.
Well, I will say this: conservative media outlets have jumped on that.
Oh, have they? Have they?
That is thing that has been pointed out by some folks in conservative media.
God.
Now, let me point this out about and I mentioned this right at the start of the conversation, that these paintings are the results when you choose activists instead of artists to do portraits. What a lot of people are not paying attention to is, and this is one that kind of slipped under, is that the Obamas. Now, remember, you mentioned specifically the one that painted the portrait of Obama. Who specializes in painting black women holding the severed heads of white women. The Obamas personally selected these artists.
Oh, I'm sure
paint.
They did. God,
they
yes.
did. They went through a vetting process. They personally selected this. So that has to stop it. And so you can't tell me that the Obamas did not know the history of these artists. They did, and they were specifically selected. And so what does that tell you about the ideology of Barack Hussein Obama? These paintings are just further vinification of what we've been saying about Barack Obama since he first jumped onto the national scene as a junior senator from the state of Illinois, and he gave his big grand speech the first time he spoke in front of the country at the Democratic National Convention, and then he became and then all of a sudden supposedly comes out of nowhere to upset the heir apparent in Hillary Clinton for the nomination and becomes president of the United States. Folks, this shows you how radical the progressive left really is, and these paintings are a symbol of that as well.
The funny thing is, now, we talk about the portraits, and let's say the Obamas, for whatever reason, say, well, we didn't know anything about the background of that, which I don't think they're going to say because they're stupid, but they're not that stupid. But they've done it before, if everyone remembers the Reverend Wright and his Goddamn America statement, and the Obamas were, well, we had no idea, though he was our pastor for about 15 years or so, we had no idea that he was that kind of an individual. And they didn't know anything about Father Flieger either, that he was on the exact same philosophical truck that the Reverend Wright was as well. Sure, I believe that. No problem. Anyway, these are juvenile. These are absolutely juvenile portraits, and we may hate them, but let me throw this out to you, Dan. Don't you think that in their own way they are truly representational of the Barack Hussein Obama 8 years? I say yes.
Oh, they sure are. And even the artist the artist that painted Barack Obama's painting, which is his name is Kehinde Willie, is his name, and he even specified. He said that while he was painting this, he wanted something to symbolize Barack Obama's childhood, his native country in Kenya, and all the different aspects of his life.
Country in Kenya. Right, perfect.
And stuff like this. That was the kind of stuff that he was talking about, how he wanted this to be representative of Barack Obama's life, his presidency, and all of this different stuff. And it was you were just going, I can't believe I'm hearing this. I can't believe this guy is actually saying all this. And here was the thing: the Obamas were like, yeah,
You bet.
just going, yeah, this is great, and you just, it's going, oh my God, but here's the thing, we had pointed out before, and the Washington Times actually has a really good article about the artist that painted the portrait of Obama and about the symbolism he does in a lot of his artwork. And I'll put that link up into the chat. But this is once again, you just shake your head that there are still people out there that do not realize just how dangerous the radical left is. And I don't use the term dangerous very loosely. I truly believe that the radical progressive left is very dangerous to our country, and you certainly see that in the type of people are. You have to look past the fact that these are more than just a couple of ugly paintings. There's a lot of symbolism in these paintings, especially the one with Barack Obama. And people first would look at these and go, hey, you know what? This is just a picture of Barack Obama sitting in a chair with a bunch of flowers and stuff. That's not the case. There's a lot of symbolism of the radicalization that has influenced Barack Obama throughout his life. From Saul Alinsky to all of the people that he grew up that helped radicalize him, going back to his so-called pastor and different things like that. He's been radicalized his entire life, and it's not gonna. And this is the guy that with the fall of the Clintons, the Democrats, there's actually a concern, and we're hearing this a lot in the state of Texas specifically, and I'm hearing it about other parts of the country. There's a concern among Democrats that their party has some Democrats that their party has moved too far to the left, and it's going to cost them elections because they've moved too far to the left. Well, folks, they didn't get drugged there kicking and screaming. They got drugged. They went willingly behind the likes of Barack Obama,
completely voluntarily,
and, Bernie Sanders, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely correct. Now, here's what I like to let me throw this visual out at you. It's sort of a mind worm, if you will. Imagine the philosophy of the state of California, and you know where that is right now. Now, imagine that philosophy moving even further aport. Now imagine this. California has nuclear weapons.
That's, you could almost say that's the equivalent to North Korea having nuclear weapons.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, because that's a perfect time for a transition that I led you into perfectly, Dan Butcher, and you bit, because now it's time to talk about your thoughts about the Kim Jong-un's lovely little sister, the flower that she is, the absolute loving individual from North Korea who was festooned with all sorts of platitudes and heaped with grace by the American media maggots. Dan, why did that occur?
Here is the thing, oh my God, it's almost like the liberal media was looking for any possible reason. They're looking for any reason that they can make Donald Trump a villain. Now look at the extreme. Look at the extreme that they're going to now. They are absolutely fawning over the North Koreans at the Olympics, declaring that CNN has declared that the North Koreans have won a major diplomatic victory over the Trump administration with the Olympics, and all of this. They're just fawning over them, and then of course they're demonizing Vice President Pence for the way he reacted with little Kim's sister sitting right behind him and different things like that, trying to make Pence seem like a complete and utter asshole during the opening ceremonies, different stuff like that. So it's how great North Korea is this, how great North Korea this, and this, how great is North Korea now. What they have forgotten is, and what they're failing to mention is that North Korea is ruled by a murderous dictator. He would kill his own sister, who is representing him at the Olympics, if she twitched her eye the wrong way. Little Kim is killing people for having the wrong haircuts. He's killing people for wearing the wrong kind of clothes. He's killing people because guess what? They're obsolete. They can no longer what is deemed pull their own weight in North Korean society. They're killing people if they speak the wrong way. Folks, they're killing people if they so much as think you have the wrong thought. I saw a video of a young North Korean girl who escaped from the country with her family into China, and she was talking about how at a young age of 6 years old that her mother said, "Don't even whisper because the mice and the snakes and the birds have ears." And then she talked about how she had to bury her father in China at the age of 14, and now how she's made it to the United States, talking about how truly despicable the Kim regime is, going back to the father, the grandfather, et cetera, and especially how brutal little Kim is. He is extremely, extremely violent. And folks, if you have to stop and think, and I want this to sink in, this is a guy that has killed his own family members because
in
he
novel
thought they
ways
were going to do him in. And if he thought his sister, I'll tell you now, if his sister was to so much as shake the wrong hand at the Olympics, she'd have a death sentence as soon as she came back to North Korea. That is who is leading that country, and that's what needs to be focused on. And it needs to be focused on that something has to be done to get nuclear weapons out of this murderer's hands, and something has to be done to stop the murdering of the North Korean people themselves.
We've got about 2 more minutes before the top of the hour break. We're talking to Dan Butcher, he of High Plains Media fame. And when we come back, we're going to shift gears just a little bit because Dan is a media guy, and there are a couple of changes that have come recently to the media that I'd like to bring to Dan's attention. Likely he already knows about them, but I'd like Dan to discuss them in terms of the media. And then I'm going to read an article by Stephen Dinan about the restoration of DACA. And then there's another article that I'd like to go over with regards to what a Los Angeles judge 2 days ago happened to do in L.A. regarding, I'm not going to Bigfoot myself over that. So, Dan, any final thoughts on the lovely sister of the Kim in about a minute?
Well, here's the thing. I think bottom line is, what I am happy to see is despite the lambasting the Trump administration is taking in the liberal media over the Olympics and the fawning over North Korea by the likes of the New York Times, CNN, et cetera, that Trump is sticking to his guns. The Trump administration is sticking to their guns as far as policy with China with North Korea is concerned. The one thing that the Trump administration is going to have to be real careful with is the fact is that the leader of South Korea seems to be getting really friendly with the Kim regime in North Korea, and that is a major concern to the South Korean people and to South Korean lawmakers as well, how cozy he is being with them in a lot of this stuff and not being as cautious as what they would like.
I have a phrase for that, and folks, if you're not aware of it, I would suggest that during the break you look it up. I would suggest that perhaps the South Korean president, he's being Stockholmed. Folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin right here on the SHR Media Network. It is live and direct from the SHR Media studio, BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Don't go away.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it
again. Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Just like the last question that you cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right. Oh,
God. Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Weaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we have now officially entered hour 2 of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. And it's about 9:05 on the left coast. It's after midnight on the far right coast. And it's 1775 and 129.723 hours in Bolivia. Tonight we have Dan Butcher of High Plains Media. We are lucky to have him. And Dan, I was going to ask you about two particular aspects of the media because you're a media guy. But first, there's a rather staggering order that just came out yesterday, I'm sorry. And this is from Stephen Dinan. The article says, court orders full restoration of DACA program. But as I read this, I'm going to solicit your input at the end. But when you read this, one of the things that Trump is famous for is coming back to bite him in the butt. And I suspect that that is very, very purposeful. A federal judge in New York ruled Tuesday, well, there you go, today, that the government must fully restart the Obama-era deferred action for childhood arrivals, deportation amnesty, and accept brand new applicants as well as renewals, throwing a potential wrench in the ongoing debate over the fate of Dreamers on Capitol Hill. Judge Nicholas Garofalus said the administration does have the power to revoke DACA, but it must give a sound reason for doing so. And the Homeland Security Department's September 2017 rationale fell far short of what is required in that regard. He even used Mr. Trump's own tweets as evidence that the DACA program was ended precipitously, pointing to President Trump's claims that he could, quote, revisit this issue, unquote, as proof the program could have been continued. Judge Garofalus is the second federal judge to rule Mr. Trump's aides bungled the phase out, but his decision is the most wide-ranging, ordering the government to not only allow those already in the program to renew their applications, but also ordering the government to accept new applications. The question before the court is thus not whether defendants could end the DACA program, but whether they offered legally adequate reasons for doing so, wrote Judge Garofalus, a Clinton appointee to the court in New York. Based on its reviews of the record before it, the court concludes that defendants have not done so. The judge said the Trump administration can still rescind the program in the future if it does it the, quote, right way, unquote. And he said the administration doesn't have to approve any specific DACA applications, but it must begin to process applications again. The earlier ruling by Judge William Alsup in California is already being appealed by the Justice Department. The government has even asked for the Supreme Court to take the case, skipping over the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The justices are weighing that request. Mr. Trump had set a March 5th phase-out date for the DACA program. Created by the Obama administration through executive action in 2012, DACA currently protects nearly 700,000 Dreamers from deportation. Mr. Trump had said the program was illegal and announced the phase-out. Now, I'm going to get to a particular issue up here, and I specifically am looking to solicit your opinion. And I think, Dan, when I read this, you're going to understand immediately which portion of the article I'm referring to. Judge Garofalus said this undercut the president's own legal team, saying it's not clear that the attorney general's views are those the administration's those of the administration he serves. In revoking DACA last year, Attorney General Jeff Sessions and acting Homeland Security Secretary Elaine Duke said they were facing the threat of a lawsuit and doubted they could legally defend the program. They said it was more humane to do a 6-month phase-out than to have a court end the program abruptly. Judge Garofalus said that this was not a compelling argument and said DACA is neither unconstitutional or illegal. He repeatedly criticized the Justice Department's handling of the case. In one instance, suggested they were playing games with timing. The court is not pleased, the judge wrote in a footnote. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the agency that handles DACA, did not have an immediate reaction to the ruling. The agency had already begun to accept renewal applications under the first court order, but it has refused to release any details of how that process is going, refusing requests from both reporters and immigrants' rights groups. Interest has apparently been strong even before the latest ruling. The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, CHRLA, has been running sign-up drives several times a week since Judge Alsup's first ruling, and said people have lined up for help to renew their permits. CHRLA is helping incentivize applicants by offering to pay the $495 USCIS renewal fee. Jorge Maria Cabrera, the group spokesman, said they've already helped 310 people apply for renewals. He said most of those applying had DACA protections, had seen them expire, and are now rushing to renew them to ensure they can continue to work. They feel having DACA will protect them from being fired or to get a job, he said. Several East Coast organizations contacted by the Washington Times did not respond to messages about how the sign-ups are going. Woohoo! Can't stop DACA. Or can you, Dan? Dan must have stepped out. He's getting a Diet Coke. That's okay, because I have another article. And this is the one that particularly infuriated me. This was out of the Los Angeles Times. And, Dan, you are there. Dan? Dan Butcher. Calling Dan Butcher. Dan Butcher, are you lost? I can hear you in the background. Okay. Dan will come back, I'm sure. Maybe he's taking a potty break. Going to the electrical chamber. This is an article now that I hold in my fetid little hands. This is from the Los Angeles Times. And this applies to the state of California, but it's also by a U.S. district judge. And this particular one really infuriates me because this overturns everything by which federal law enforcement works or used to work hand in hand with state law enforcement and also with local law enforcement, local police departments, and mostly with local sheriff's departments in California, because sheriff's departments, you may or may not know, are in charge of the local corrections systems all up and down California. Let me ask, by the way, Dan, are you there? I did hear you breathing. Dan, I can hear you breathing. Here's the article by Joel Rubin from the L.A. Times. L.A. federal judge rules that a key tool in Trump's immigration crackdown effort is illegal. But let me point this out. By ruling in this fashion, this judge has essentially emasculated any way that ICE, depending upon how this is implemented, can't even do their damn job. A federal judge in Los Angeles has ruled that police departments violate the Constitution if they detain inmates at the request of immigration agents, marking the latest legal setback for the Trump administration's plans to identify and deport immigrants in the country illegally. Now think about that for just a moment. Mary, I'm with you. I hope Dan is okay. Dan, if you're there, and Dan, it still indicates that it's connected. So, Dan, can we hear you? You can talk.
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry about that.
That was weird.
Yeah, that was really weird. Okay,
I was about to call back in.
Okay, so let me ask you, did you happen to hear any of the other article that I read about DACA?
Not a damn thing.
Okay. Alrighty.
I was about to turn my speakers on so I could hear, but when I'm on hold, I can't hear anything. When you put me on hold, I can't hear the ads. I can't hear anything.
Oh, okay. I read an article about DACA, and basically the judge overturned DACA and said that all the people can reapply, and plus more people can come in. I just transitioned over to a new article, and this is also another one that I'd really like to have your input on because it overturns everything. And you may be aware of it, but when I actually got a hold of it, I found this article even more disconcerting than any of the others. This is from Joel Rubin of the L.A. Times, and I apologize to the people if I'm going to go through this again, but I want Dan to hear it and to understand what's going on so that Dan can respond adequately. The headline says, L.A. federal judge rules that a key tool in Trump's immigration crackdown effort is illegal. A federal judge in Los Angeles has... Yes. A federal judge in Los Angeles has ruled that police departments violate the Constitution if they detain inmates at the request of immigration agents, marking the latest legal setback for the Trump administration's plans to identify and deport immigrants in the country illegally. Essentially what this federal judge in Los Angeles has done is taken the state of California sanctuary policy that says that local California law enforcement cannot respond, but now he's taken it to a different level and driven it up to the federal venue completely. In his order issued Wednesday, U.S. District Judge Andre Birat found that A now-defunct policy of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department violated the constitutional rights of inmates who were kept in custody at the behest of immigration and customs enforcement officers. Berat's strongly worded order bolstered similar previous court rulings which found police cannot legally honor such detainer requests from ICE. The LASD officers have no authority to arrest individuals for civil immigration offenses, and thus detaining individuals beyond the date of release violated the individual's Fourth Amendment rights, Berat wrote. Excuse me. The Sheriff's Department, the Sheriff's Department has not delayed releasing inmates on ICE's behalf since 2014. And none of California's 58 sheriffs are willing to fulfill the ICE requests. Police in other parts of the country, however, continue to hold inmates to allow ICE agents time to take them to federal custody for possible deportation. Judges elsewhere could look to this week's decision for guidance when deciding future cases. In the 48-page ruling, Berat found other old ICE and Sheriff's Department policies had run afoul of the Constitution as well. Though many of the issues raised in the case have been addressed in previous cases or don't apply to new ICE and Sheriff's Department policies, Berat's order bars either agency from returning to old practices and will add to the growing set of cases impeding Trump's plan to aggressively ramp up the number of deportations. As part of the administration's plans, ICE officials have increased the number of detainer requests the agency issues to local police departments. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions has tried to ratchet up pressure on local law enforcement agencies across the country that have refused to honor the detainer requests and cooperate with ICE in other ways. This is a significant ruling, especially considering the national debate around immigration and the efforts of the Trump administration to strong-arm localities to honor immigration detainers, said a particular individual with the American Civil Liberties Union. This next paragraph is the crux of the biscuit. Under Berat's order, an estimated 10,000 to 12,000 people who were, quote, improperly held in L.A. County jails, unquote, on ICE detainers between 2010 and 2014 may be entitled to monetary awards. Oh, but wait, there's more. Along with his finding that local police cannot legally hold people in custody at ICE's request, Berat ruled on other aspects of the detainer process. He ruled, for example, that ICE was wrong to issue detainers for people who were born overseas but were not found in the massive databases federal agents rely on when determining a person's immigration status. ICE officials said in court filings that the agency stopped the practice in June 2015, although Pasquarella from the ACLU said she doubts the agency has changed its ways. And an ICE practice of issuing detainers for people without a warrant when there was no evidence that the subject was a flight risk was illegal, the judge ruled. Under the terms of the lawsuit, the ruling voids any pending detainer requests that were issued by ICE officials in Southern California. That designation is important since ICE officers working out of a facility in Orange County issued detainer requests to police departments in dozens of states around the country. Judge Berat also concluded that the Sheriff's Department practice of booking people with ICE detainers into jail, even if their bail had been set at less than $25,000, was improper. Typically, the department did not put someone with bail under that amount behind bars. The department said the policy was changed in 2014. For years, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department callously, this is a quote, callously denied immigrants constitutional protections that universally apply to other jail detainees, unjustifiably holding them without cause as prisoners, said Lindsay Battles, one of the attorneys involved in the case. This decision holds law enforcement agencies accountable for their anti-immigrant abuse of their authority. ICE and sheriff's officials declined to comment, citing the ongoing lawsuit. The order came in a class action lawsuit that challenges several aspects of detainee requests and detainer requests. Electronic alerts that ICE officers commonly issue when a local police department has custody of someone ICE believes should be deported. The notices, among other things, ask police to keep targeted inmates beyond when they would otherwise be released in order to give ICE agents time to take custody of them. The article goes on and basically says, finding that some issues needed to be hashed out in front of a jury, Bharat did not rule on all aspects of the case. Now, this has flown under the radar of a lot of people, and I have a very, very, very definite view of this. And I'll sum it up this way. If this holds, your ability to stop illegals entering this country has just about been eliminated. Dan, any of your thoughts?
Well, and it even goes further than that. This judge with this ruling has basically made the sanctuary state of California the equivalent to a gun-free zone. Let me explain that. Is because you have to remember there's a reason the majority of the illegals that are being held in jail, most of them are not being held because they were caught wandering the streets and they're in the country illegally. Most of them are being held because they did something.
Exactly.
And so you're talking about, and when I'm making this the equivalent to a gun-free zone, folks, this makes it very dangerous for law-abiding citizens because you're talking about a lot of these folks that are being held are more than just petty drug crimes and stuff like that. There's a lot of gang members. MS-13 comes to mind off the top of my head. Drunk drivers, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, you name it, they're there. And you're talking about these folks being released out on the street to be able to commit crime after crime after crime again, especially with the gang activity. That's a whole other element. Weapons, drug runners coming across the border. The list goes on and on and on. BZ, the lawmakers and judges in California are drinking and smoking some really bad stuff because, folks, this is so dangerous.
It's insane.
It's more than insane. This is basically open season. Basically you're just saying, you know what? You come on in. You can come rape our children, come steal our wives. And here's the other thing. They're not just these folks are committing crimes against their own community. They're murdering each other. I mean, it's a never-ending cycle, and it hampers law enforcement to be. This goes further than combating, illegal aliens coming across the border. This hampers law enforcement in their ability to enforce the laws. Basically, this judge has just thrown every single law in the state of California out the window and taken every tool that police officers have at their disposal to do their jobs. And because, these folks will just have there'll be nothing to stop them.
No,
BZ?
You're absolutely...
Nothing to stop them, because they know if they do something, they're not going to be turned over to ICE, and they possibly can make bail, get released, and guess what, folks? They're gone to come back another day. And you know what? If this was somebody that started out as a burglar, as somebody holding up with armed robbery, then they have the opportunity to come back and commit more heinous crimes, etc. And folks, if you live in the state of California, you should be scratching your head right now. But unfortunately, BZ, I see this in a lot of different places across the country. I'm thankful I live in the state of Texas.
Yeah, don't limit this to California.
There's too many people in your state that just turn their heads the other way.
Don't limit this to California. Coming soon to a theater near you, because what happens here in this Petri dish moves on to other damn states as well. Now, here's the other point that I want to make. I want to note that what courts, leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots are demanding now, and judges, is this. They want essentially a full-blown investigatory case on each and every suspected illegal alien involving forensic evidence, statements, background information, and more before an illegal can even be detained. That's where it's going. The standard, though, I should like to point out, by which federal law enforcement and state and local law enforcement cooperated in the past with regard to the honoring of holds and detainers is gone, because this is how it used to work when I was in the jail. If we came across somebody, and it's just like you say, it's exactly like you say. How do we come across illegals primarily in this country? 95% of them come across contacts in terms of law enforcement. In other words, there's another reason that these people have been stopped. They have a warrant. They committed a crime. They were issued a traffic citation. They FTA'd out of those things, and law enforcement comes in contact with them again. They go into a jail. Customarily, ICE would issue, back then it was the U.S. Border Patrol, would issue a detainer or a hold. And they would come in and speak to the people, and if they decided that they believed that they were illegal, they left the jails and they went someplace else. They, of course, were held to answer for whatever crimes they committed then at the time. So now, what this judge is saying is that a hold or a detainer, that's not going to do. That's not good enough. So Here's what I'm positing, Dan, and these are the ramifications. This is why I went 210 over 90 when I read this article. This is the Cloward pivoting of the immigration system, in which Saul Alinsky also embraced that. In other words, they want to break the system. They want to shatter the system. Then one of two things can either happen. It can be completely eliminated wholesale, or they're going to put another system in its place. And this is a way to do that. Leftists, judges, Democrats, the American media maggots, they are entirely cognizant and aware that the elimination of a hold or a detainer, and instead what they're demanding essentially is a full-blown investigation. It's a new investigatory paradigm that they want in place before even one person can be detained. And what they know is this: that is entirely unsustainable.
You know what, BZ? And I'm going to flip this real quick. And I'm going to bring California Attorney General Xavier Becerra into this conversation.
Okay.
Because here you have this judge who is basically saying, hey, you know what? We're going to release all these criminals into the street, ignore laws, etc. So now you have California Attorney General Xavier Becerra, who is actually threatening to prosecute private business owners and private citizens that help federal immigration authorities to enforce immigration laws that have to enforce existing laws in the state of California. Let me tell you what this asshole had to say. He said, it's important, given these rumors that are out there, to let people know, more specifically employers, that if they voluntarily start giving up information about their employees or access to their employees in ways that contradict our new California laws, they subject themselves to actions by our office. So what he's saying is that California's new sanctuary laws supersede all existing laws as far as immigration, and they're saying that the state's sanctuary laws supersede all federal immigration laws as well. This guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
And so you have the state of California on the flip side saying, hey, you know what? If you help federal authorities, we're going to throw you in jail for helping someone that possibly could have raped your daughter or murdered your wife.
We got one more minute before the bottom of the hour break. They know it's unsustainable. They know it full well. Though, if you ask them, immigration attorneys, though, are the first to say that, as they quantify it, unlawful presence, air quotes, unlawful presence in the country is not a crime. So I riddle you this in terms of law. Therefore, if it isn't a crime, why is it that they insist that it is treated as a crime, that a detainer or a hold won't do? California jails already house federal prisoners because the feds don't have enough housing, bottom line. And jails in California instruct their deputies to call illegals detainees. You're not supposed to call them arrestees, as technically they're not under arrest, but they're detained. If they're detainees only, why is it determined that we need to treat them as criminals? They can't have their cake and eat it too, and they're going to do that. Folks, we got to take a break. We've been talking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Media, and we're going to be right back, and it'll give me time to Kalmate, namaste, center, my little one. Center up, grasshopper.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Weaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey guys, this is Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Check us out every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network.
And this is Sackhead Clint, as the best-looking one of the bunch. It's my duty to remind you to check us out on our YouTube channel.
And don't forget to check us out on the SHR Media Facebook page. The best-looking one? Really? You going to go there?
Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the SHR
Voters' Choice.
Media
I have the award
Network.
right here.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
And Sackheads BZ.
Wait, I'm Sean.
No, I'm Sean.
All right, listen, we'll figure this out every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the...
Where the hell is Clint?
On the SHR Media Network, www.shrmedia.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube. Now, right back to this amazing show right here on the SHR Media Network.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the final segment of the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, 2 miles, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. It will always, at least in my lifetime, likely be occupied. Tonight we've had the luxury and the absolute privilege and pleasure of talking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Media fame, and we were talking about a crazy order that had been issued by a Los Angeles judge, basically saying that, you know, at least in California, you can no longer honor ICE detainers or holds from the federal government. But wait, there's a little bit of brightness on the horizon. Here's a story that I think will enlighten us and make us make our hearts tend to at least perhaps a bit, Dan Butcher, soar a little bit more like an eagle. Trump unveils 11th round of judicial nominees. President Trump announced his 11th wave of judicial nominees on Monday, yesterday, intending to nominate 9 federal judges, including 4 federal circuit court picks. Since taking office roughly 1 year ago, Mr. Trump faced an unprecedented amount of vacancies on the federal bench. He's had 13 circuit court judges confirmed in the past year. His list Monday included 5 district court nominees and 4 circuit court picks. And then it lists a whole bunch of names. But now with this issuance from the judge in Los Angeles, it underscores and underlines the incredible need and importance for making sure not just that SCOTUS is that the proper nominations being made for SCOTUS, but district courts, in many ways, they're every bit as important, occasionally, if not more so, than SCOTUS. And that's another reason that Democrats are absolutely frying Dan Butcher.
You know, one of the biggest successes of the Trump administration has been the appointment of the judges that he has made thus far, and this goes back to the primary. I think probably the single biggest reason that you needed a Republican in the White House, and that was that our court systems, you know, several of the courts across the country had just become too radicalized with liberal activist judges that were, you know, basically they were legislating from the bench.
Yes, exactly.
They were making laws in their own image. And so this is the one thing that is going to this one thing of anything else in the Trump administration that is going to have a great effect long after he is gone is how Trump, over the next few years, even if he's just a one-term president, is going to be able to remake the courts. And this is not, and I stress this, you know, Donald Trump is, he ran as a Republican. He's far from a conservative. But and so you're going to see a mix of judges that he's going to put in there. Some will be conservative, some will be middle of the road. But what he is instilling on the benches with these nominees are judges with something that is sorely lacking. That's called common sense. Common sense. And so common sense is being restored to many of the courts across the country. I think this is the, forget the tax package that was passed thus far, and we can kind of forget. This may offset the failure of repealing and replacing Obamacare, because in the long run, restoring sanity to the courts is going to go a long ways in helping restore common sense and sanity to our country. And hopefully, and I hope that California is not too far gone, but hopefully, somewhere you can restore a little bit of sanity. There is a little bit of glimmer of hope, because there are some Democrats out there that are starting to wake up and say, hey, well, you know what? We're going a little too far to the left, way too progressive for our liking, and this is not what our country is about. And so, I know I'm being an optimist. I know, but I still believe in our country, and I still believe we have a great future. There's just a lot of things we've got to do to restore, sanity and common sense. And this is a great way, and it's putting judges on the bench that actually will, enforce laws, use common sense. I don't know, that have actually read the Constitution of the United States of America. So, just a few of those little qualifications I think are very important.
I place that into the go, no-go category. And that's this. What I mean by that is this. It's once these appointments are made, this is an axiom in the federal law enforcement system and the federal courts as well. This is one of the first things I learned when you're dealing with an AUSA, when I was working for the feds. An AUSA is the Assistant U.S. Attorney. And that's this. Every U.S. attorney wants to be a federal judge. Why? Because their appointment is imperial. It's essentially set for life. So when you have something that's done, some things once done cannot be undone, which is where you're going to get the pressure from the Democrats, because the Democrats know you cannot unappoint a SCOTUS nominee. You cannot unappoint these judges that Trump is lining up, which is why they're arraying all their forces against it. The corollary to that is, now that explains the done and undone factor with regard to the wall, which is why the Democrats are fighting the wall with every fiber of their being, with every breath they take, because once a wall is up, you cannot take it down.
And BZ, let me stress this as well, and I'm going to come back to the 2018 midterm elections that we're going to have in November.
Okay.
I think these midterm elections are just as important as the 2016 presidential election.
Yes.
Because I think the Republicans are going to have no problem whatsoever retaining control of the House, maybe even add some seats. That's going against trends when with the party that has the president in office tends to lose seats. I think they're going to hold, maybe gain some. But it's very important that the Republicans maintain control of the Senate, because if they don't, then the Democrats can throw a wrench into restoring common sense and sanity to the courts.
And the first thing that's going to happen under a Democrat Senate is they are, in fact, going to go for impeachment. You can take that. You can take that to the damn bank. Guaranteed. Absolutely guaranteed.
Exactly. And so once again, here's my thing with the Republicans. I don't even think the Democrats are the Republicans' own worst enemy. I think the Republicans are their own worst enemy. They've kind of got the Republicans have got to get their message together, and they have got to Once again, I'm a firm believer. You know what? If you put good quality candidates out there, they will win election. But the Republicans sometimes tend not to put good quality candidates out there. They tend to follow the same line the Democrats do.
No,
So,
2016 was the conundrum election of a universe.
Yes.
Now, TC, Traveling Cynic in chat, has written a couple of very interesting and salient points here. Number one, he said the wall will not get built because the Democrats want an issue. Okay, yep, agreed.
Right.
The other one is, he said the Democrats are almost out of issues. And I throw this salient point into the mix for you, Dan Butcher of High Plain Media. I throw this in as well. Under the current Rasmussen and other polling, Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on top of his head, is almost at a 50% approval rating, despite everything that's going on against him day after day, hour after hour. I submit the corollary to that is that the president of Mexico, as I've pointed out before, his ratings are under Donald Trump. Emmanuel Macron from France, and wants to invade Syria most recently. Don't know if you heard that. Emmanuel Macron's approval ratings are lower than Donald John Trump. Trudeau in Canada, his approval ratings are lower than Donald John Trump. Angela Merkel in Germany, her approval ratings are lower than Donald John Trump. Theresa May in the UK, her approval ratings are lower than Donald John Trump. Astounding, but absolutely true. So what do the Democrats have for 2018, Dan Butcher, other than no?
The Democrats are sticking to identity politics.
Yep.
That is what they're sticking to, tried and true. The Democrats are going to they're going to beat the DACA horse to death. That is what you're going to see. How many more times, how many more times are we going to have to listen to Nancy Pelosi standing up for an 8-hour speech in support of DACA, but yet she cannot stand up for a couple of seconds to support our law enforcement officials or our military during the President's State of the Union address. Think about that for a second. So they are going to be DACA, 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 immigration, immigration, immigration. And how do the Republicans take that away from them? I think the Republicans are going to do something on immigration and to take that issue away from them. And, of course, Trump, like it or not, Trump did take one big bite out of them when he offered the amnesty to 1.8 million dreamers, et cetera, et cetera. Like it or not. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But he's taken a talking point away. It's very important. Even if you do nothing, you take the talking points away from them.
Here's the thing that's so astounding, that's so amazingly incredible, arrogant of them, Dan, is Donald John Trump extended his hand and said 1.8 million. 1.8 million. That's about 7 times what Barack Hussein Obama was offering, and the Democrats said no.
Right.
Okay, we've only got about 10 minutes left before the end of the show, actually 8 because I need to play the outro. I want to get your thoughts on these because I asked you at the beginning of the show. I want your input on the way that the media is changing. Your media. You are the media. So I would assume, and I know for a fact, that you have various thoughts about what's happening in the media. I found an article recently, and this one just kind of tickled me a little bit, and I thought, okay, maybe Dan knows something about what's going on between in the underlying subtexts of this, and it's a potential purchase. And that's this. Ben Shapiro, who I believe he owns the Daily Wire. But Ben Shapiro wants to buy The Blaze. And I don't know if you've heard that or not. Now, folks who may not know what The Blaze is or what it represents, that's Mercury Media. And Mercury Media is owned by Glenn Beck, who used to be on Fox until he got Silly, Stupid, and Fattening kind of simultaneously, and kind of went out on, I don't know where the hell Glenn Beck went, but he started his own company and he started his own media, and it's called The Blaze. They've got a website, they've got television going on, and I find this very interesting that Ben Shapiro is angling for The Blaze. And I don't know if you've heard anything about that, Dan Butcher.
I have heard about this.
I thought you would.
And there is a lot of stuff taking place. Now, here's the thing. There's no secret that the Blaze was actually the Blaze website, news website itself, and Mercury Arts, which there's a lot of different divisions that make up Mercury Arts, but the real successful portions of Mercury Arts are, of course, Glenn Beck's radio show,
yep,
which he basically used to build the Blaze and Mercury Arts. Of course, the publishing arm, which publishes all of Glenn books, very profitable,
right,
and then the Blaze itself. The Blaze website, the news and information website, very, very profitable. Now, here's what happened with the Blaze overall. The big thing that is hemorrhaging money for the Blaze is the Blaze TV. And, of course, the Blaze TV has it has struggled due to a lack of distribution through major cable companies. They've tried to go through Time Warner, Cablevision, Comcast, whatever, but they were never able to break through with a lot of different cable company stuff like that. Now,
right,
here's the thing: the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, of course, is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is actually owned, there's a little underlying thing. The Daily Wire is actually owned by members of a billionaire Texas family, which is the Wilkes. The Wilkes.
Right.
And so Ben Shapiro does have some backing and some money to make that purchase, and so it'd be really interesting to see what a combination, if they would keep the Daily Wire separate from the Blaze,
yep,
or operate them together. I would imagine they would do something like what Town Hall Media has done. Town Hall, owns Hot Air. They own Red State, the Town Hall website itself. Of course, Town Hall, which is the grandfather of all conservative media websites. So I think the Wilkes are looking at maybe starting another conservative media company. So there is some money there, and it also depends on how much money Glenn Beck himself has lost. And will they just purchase Mercury Arts as a whole? Will they just purchase the Blaze? Will they want to do away with the TV? There's a lot of different things here. So I would think probably there may be a deal in the works, and what I'm hearing here in Texas is that it's not just for the Blaze.
Okay.
It is for Mercury Arts itself.
Okay.
And, of course, the Wilkes family does have the money to buy Mercury, the entire outfit of Glenn Beck, which would include his radio show, his book publishing and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see bringing Glenn Beck and Ben Shapiro together.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd combination. And we got about 5 more minutes, which means we got about maybe 3.5 minutes before we can talk. The final thing that I wanted to talk to you, Dan Butcher, before we go is this. One of the editors at the New York Times came out this week and says that he gives about 10 more years before print media dies. Your final thoughts tonight about that?
I think it's quicker than that. Here's what's happened to newspapers. There's no such thing as a newspaper company anymore. Newspapers have evolved into multimedia outlets. They have, for people that don't know, I actually have 2 newspapers myself, and so but basically what newspapers have evolved into, it's just another product of our media company. And so, like the New York Times is more than just the New York Times. They have broadcasting, they have podcasting, et cetera, et cetera. So, print product, one of the local newspapers here that we compete with in our local market, the print product. I look at them and say it's nothing more than it's evolved into nothing more than an advertising supplement. But in addition to the newspaper, they also put out magazines, shoppers, car magazines, to buy cars and stuff. But the biggest thing that newspapers are having to deal with, of course, is the loss of local advertising revenue and the loss of classified advertising revenue. So those have just been death kills in the newspaper industry. And so, used to when I started out in newspapers, I spent the majority of my career working for Hearst, working for CNHI, working for Morse Communications, which was recently bought by Gatehouse Media. What I have seen is, over the years, is that the death of newspapers. What they failed to do many years ago, when we came out with the websites, working with the print products, the basic gist was to work the websites with the print. Well, they put too much focus on continuing old and tried ways. Yep. And I tell you what, the way that we do our media company and the way that I do High Plains Pundit is we're advertising secondary to us. We concentrate on content. We concentrate on quality, telling the truth. There's a
what
key
a
there.
Shock. No.
And being respected. And being trustworthy, truth in media, and stuff like that. And so that's kind of what we concentrate on. So, print's going to be around a little bit longer. I don't think it's going to go away completely. But what you will see, you will not see the death of the print newspaper, but what you will see is the death of the daily print newspaper. Most print editions will go to their biggest publication days, their heaviest advertising days, which is, usually Wednesday through Sunday or Thursday through Sunday, something like that. So you'll go from printing 7 days a week to 3 or 4 days a week.
I want to wrap it up with this. I'm going to thank you in just a second, Dan, but I want to wrap it up with this. I used to work for KFBK a long time ago. And KFBK was owned by McClatchy Broadcasting, and they owned newspapers. They owned, they're still a player in the media world, but McClatchy, right. Eleanor McClatchy, used to own newspapers, close to 7 or 8 newspapers, at least as many radio stations, at least as many TV stations. The most awesome thing, one of the most awesome things I ever got to experience, and no one else ever will because it's a dying animal, is at 21st and Q Street in downtown Sacramento. I used to watch the locomotives move the boxcars full of huge, massive rolls of newspaper into what then used to be, in the 1900s, early 1900s, the Buffalo Beer Brewery. So it was a number of levels. It was 5 stories tall. But there's almost nothing as impressive as being in the room when the presses of a big newspaper start. It actually shakes your lungs, and every fiber, every molecule of your body is affected. It's an incredible sight to see, to experience, to feel, and smell. It's absolutely astounding.
Let me share this story with you real quick in closing before we end it. One time when I worked for Hearst Corporation, I got to go down to the Houston Chronicle. And at the time, the Houston Chronicle still had some of their press units in the downtown building. Of course, most newspapers have moved all their printing from their main offices to off-site production facilities and stuff like that. But at that time, they still had printing presses in the basement, had 7 of these things. And one time when we were down there, they were putting on the show for different things. And so they started up all 7 presses at the same time. And then they had a laser light show that was putting the Hearst logo, which is the eagle, the Hearst eagle, on the walls and stuff like that. This thing you thought was going, and of course the Houston Chronicle building in Houston is of course a multi-story skyscraper. It rattled this building. You thought you could feel the presses starting on the top floor. You thought that this building was going to take off and shoot to the moon when those presses started, man. It was phenomenal. And unfortunately, it's something that a lot of people, I think it's a shame that many youth today will never know the glory of getting ink-stained hands by delivering newspapers.
And typesetters. No one knows what the hell a typesetter is anymore.
Exactly. Exactly.
I actually went to go see the movie The Post. I know we're over time, but give me a couple more minutes here, folks. I actually went to go see the movie The Post, and it had Meryl Streep and gosh, who's the other actor who's from Sacramento? He was, oh gosh, a very famous actor. Now I can't, for whatever reason, I can't think of his name. But in any event, it went through...
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, thank you very much. It went through... the trials and tribulations of Watergate, essentially, and in that they show you typesetting, presses, etc. For that aspect only, I went to go see the movie, and it is a moving feeling. Those days are about to go. Dan Butcher, thank you ever so kindly. The fastest 2 hours in media. Dan, give us a blast as to where you can be found and read, sir.
Man, you can find everything at highplainspundit.com. There you will find, of course, High Plains Pundit. You will find High Plains Talk Radio as well as High Plains Pundit TV, my friend.
Dan, thank you ever so kindly, as per normal. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight, for your wit, and your utilization, your rampant utilization and buttery goodness of common sense. Folks, you've been listening to Dan Butcher of High Plains Media, and I want to thank him ever so kindly for being here. And ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night, don't forget, Sackheads, they will be here, and then I will be back on Thursday if I can get my arse off the ground. And if you think we discussed anything even remotely close to how insane California is, you ain't heard nothing yet.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can go to my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. I'm on Twitter at bzepp, and of course, the Bloviating Zeppelin has a spot in the blogosphere, or excuse me, in the universe, on the internet, on Facebook. A little disconcerting, don't quite know how to make Facebook work real well yet, but anyway, promotional consideration is by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And of course, by Pratt & Whitney Engines, thrust, you can trust. And of course, my thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with which I will be consorting. You can take that one to the bank in less than an hour, however long it takes me to wrap up here, get in the car, and go home. Thank you for your time. Thanks to Dan Butcher. Folks, come back tomorrow night, Sackheads. Come back Thursday night for BZ. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.